you can see behind me here, Better Health, as the name implies, all we are doing is to give you up-to-date health information, actionable health information that when you apply them, your health is going to be better. It's as simple as that. And I say up-to-date because there are lots of health information. You can get information anywhere. There are lots of health information from everywhere. You know that, go through the internet, you see a lot of them. The only issue we have with those is that most of the people dishing out those health information are not specialists, or they are not even in healthcare. That is a big problem. That is one. Two, there are also some that are in healthcare giving out those health information. But there's a problem there because a lot of us, let me just include myself, a lot of us in healthcare, we're not able to interpret data. We don't know how to interpret data. It's not part of our training. So it's a big issue. All most people depend on is just look at the summary, So when you look at the summary, they'll now, okay, whatever the summary says is what it is, but it's not always like that. When I did my further studies, I did masters in public health, that was when I understood how to interpret data. Understand if you have to throw the data away or you really have to use it. And 99.9% of healthcare professionals cannot do that. They just go to the summary. So because of that, there's a lot of deception. So people sponsor studies and then report whatever they want to report. And then at the end of the day, health is not improving. So there are quite a lot of misinformation out there. That is not what we are to discuss today, but I just wanted to lay that as the background. I'm saying that is some of us here will be wondering, why should we listen to you? There are a lot of people dishing out health information everywhere and every time. Why should we listen to you? Well, after today, and if you can join a couple of times as well, by God's grace, we are doing it every Thursday now. So it's going to be every Thursday, 8 p.m. If you're able to join us, you will understand the difference between what we are doing here and what other people are doing. You understand that we go down to the root. We look at patterns. We understand that is the way we do our research in order not to deceive people. There are a lot of things they've asked you to do, and then people are doing it and they are getting sicker. It's quite a problem. Having said that, I want to also let us know that we have a YouTube page. It's still Better Health Podcast. We have Instagram, Better Health Podcast. I haven't started posting anything yet, but I can assure you that before the end of this week, even this video for today is going to be there. So you may do well to follow up on us, and we'll really appreciate. So I want to, there's a way I want to approach this. Today, I wanted, maybe at the end of this conversation, I'll just give some tips. So, okay, begin to practice this. So, but I discovered because when you are practicing, it's not like when you're reading, you read out, you read up, you go and share. No. I've been practicing. I've been doing this research for over 8 years now. And actually, it's a deep dive into some of the things that people do not share. So let me warn you, there might be a couple of things that might be controversial that you hear. But the truth is, I prove everything I say. I don't just come and just mumble things because I want to say something. Everything I'm going to tell you is true, is correct, and I'll prove that. But why am I saying that? Is I discovered in the course of treating people that you ask people, okay, do this, do that, do that, do that. You give them 10 points to do. And then they'll do 1, do 2, do 3. They are not able to, So what I want to do is, from today, I'll just be giving one. Today, I'll say this is our takeaway. We'll take that away. And then when we come back next week, you make sure you practice whatever we are saying. And then we'll have another takeaway again next week. And then we'll have another takeaway next week. And then in the next 10 weeks, every week we're going to be having takeaways. And trust me, by God's grace, if you begin to apply these things, between now and the end of the year, you're going to see a dramatic change in your own health. You know, and for maybe some of you that might have pre-diabetics and all that, you discover that it might just disappear and it will go away. I will share some things with you that, you know, I understand what I'm saying. So that is that. So we're going to start with that. I'm going to give you an exercise. That exercise is breath work. It's breath work. It's part of what I do. One, it can help when you do it consistently. It can help lower blood pressure. Two, there are actually two breath work, but I'm going to show you one today, like I said. And then secondly, when you do it consistently, it can help you bust stress. It can help you deal with stress. So the way it goes is you're going to breathe in. So when you're breathing in, it's not like once, no. So you're going to breathe in like at the count of 4. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. So you now breathe in, like, you know, gradually. So I'll demonstrate it. So like that. So I'll do it again. So you make sure you breathe in at that count so you feel in your lungs. So when you feel in your lungs, I'm going to do this 7 times. So you're going to hold it for 7 times, okay? So you feel in your lungs 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you now release. When you release from your mouth, okay? You release from your mouth and you make a sound. So I'll do that now, okay? Let me start again. I don't know if you understand. So we're going to do, I'm doing this before you breathe in at that count. You now hold that breath for at the count of 7, and then you make that hum sound. You breathe out at the count of 8. So don't release at once, okay? So let's all try that. So we're going to try it. 1 to go. We'll do it again. I don't know if we really understand that, but all right. Thank you very much. So we want to go into the presentation proper. And I want to ask you for just a favor. Just listen very carefully. Just listen very carefully. If there's anything you don't understand, we're going to have opportunity for question and answer. So as much as we can do today, we'll do. I'm not going to take too much of your time at all. So in the next 30, 40 minutes, wherever I stop, continue from there next time. Okay, thank you very much. So this is the flyer for the advert. Once again, I want to thank you for joining. It's an honor for me to host every one of us here. I really appreciate that, and hopefully, I'm praying that you won't be disappointed that you joining. You're going to gain 1 or 2 things, and like I said, please just listen to me carefully. As we shared, this is the title of this conversation: your real age, not your birthday age. And I understand that it can be funny, this kind of title, because Do you know I sent a couple of people directly, and about 5 of them sent me happy birthday wish. It's funny. So happy birthday. Some even called me and sang for me. I still said thank you, amen, happy birthday, you know. So, but it wasn't about my birthday. I was just trying to communicate something. We are looking at aging today. I know aging has been bastardized, longevity everywhere, and then you hear all sorts of things. But I'm going to connect a couple of things together here, and I pray that you are going to be blessed. So, definitions: chronological age is your age, your birthday age. Okay, you're 40, you're 50, you're 30, you're 12, you're 5, you're 100. That is your chronological age. That refers to the number of years you have lived on earth, how long you have been alive. That is chronological age. But that is not biological age. Biological age is the wear and tear that has happened to our cells, our systems, our organs. So that's biological age. So you can see difference between them. So you see, chronology is I am 50, I'm 40, I'm 30. But biology is how old you are inside. You know, reflective of what your cells, you know, the wear and tear they have gone through your tissues and your organs. So birthday age, nobody age. Your body, you know, your birthday can say another thing, your body will say another thing. You see some people, they are 70, but their body is saying 40. Some people are 35, their body is saying 70. So your real age in this definition is the wear and tear that is happening in your system. I just want to draw an analogy from a car. You know, I believe every one of us here will know what a car is. You know, you have, let me use Highlander, say 2000, model 2000, 2010, 2015, 2020. That model year actually represents the chronological age, just like we're defining tonight. But the mileage is what is the biological age, in quote. You know, I know it's not a living thing, okay? So the wear and tear on the car and all that, that's why you see people advertise cars to sell. You see on different platforms, both in Nigeria and abroad. They don't just put the model year and say, oh, Highlander 2010, and then it ends there. No, they go deeper to tell you, okay, apart from all the functionality, full option and all that, they'll go ahead to show you pictures. Some will show you up to 50 pictures. Why? They want you to see the state. And they also write the mileage. If they don't, you discover that you might not even buy it. So in the context of health and wellness, biological age is actually more important than chronological age. And this is why it's more important, because it's biological age that will determine when you're going to die. So it's not because you're 40 today or you're 50 today. No, it's the biological age. That is the age of your cells, like we said, the wear and tear. So I just created 2 pictures. You can see a 20-year-old, you might not, okay, you might be looking frail, but I just use that to represent this training. 20-year-old with the biological profile of a 50-year-old. It means the cells, the tissue, the blood vessels, and all that represent that of a 50-year-old. Meanwhile, he's 20. And then you have another 50-year-old who has the biology of a 20-year-old. If I may ask, who would die first of these 2 people? If you're 20 and you have the biology of a 50-year-old, it means the acceleration of your aging is actually much. And unfortunately, you might not live long. Sorry, it's not prophecy, but that is true. So biological age, not chronological age, reflects our body's true condition. So many people feel healthy, but carry silent, accumulating health risk. We're going to, I'm not going to rush. I will take you one after the other, because this training is going to form a foundation for what I'm going to be training in the next 1 year. So I'm going to take I'm going to run through, it's going to be summary, maybe today and the next one, I'll finish it. And then subsequently, I'll be taking each of them and, we'll be doing a deep dive. And then your eyes will be open to so many things that you actually do not know before. And then look at where we're going. I say many people think they're healthy, but they are not. And it happens to many of us. We think we're healthy, but we are not. And I'm going to give you 3 reasons that, okay? So number 1 is, I say when your body doesn't speak. When your body doesn't speak, ordinarily you listen to your body. Your body is supposed to be the ultimate umpire with respect to whatever is going on in your health. If I tell you I take a paracetamol, no, sorry, I won't mention paracetamol because you can get those ones in the pharmacy. That's not what we're doing here. If I say I take vitamin C, 1,000 milligrams, 2,000 milligrams, and then you also take 2,000 milligrams, and then you react, it means your body is speaking to you. But most often than not, our bodies will not speak. That is one of the issues. So why people think they are healthy, but they are not. Their bodies are not speaking. And so they are feeling fine. But that feeling fine is misleading them. And it happens to a lot of people. I'll give you examples. We all here, we know, at least you can mention 1 or 2 or 3 people that have died of heart attack this year. Some are 20, some of the ones are known or heard, 20, 30, 40. And you see them, there is no sign of ailment or frailty or whatever, no sign at all. They look healthy, they look fine, they look strong, they look fit. You even admire them. And then suddenly, boom, they are gone. Why? Their feelings have misled them. Something is going on inside them that is not right. So that is the problem. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. And say symptoms of aging appear late. Feeling normal does not mean optimal. Normal is not equal to optimal. So that is what we have to. I'll give you examples of this. Look at a study in the US. Usually, like I said, whatever I say, I'm going to give you references. You will see it in case you want to go through them so that you know we are saying the right thing here. 1 in 8 people in the US have what they call metabolic syndrome. As in, they are metabolically unhealthy. What does it mean? Metabolic syndrome is, I don't know how to break it down. It's a conglomeration of different risk factors like diabetes, high blood pressure, dyslipidemia, like you say, high cholesterol, and a couple of other things together, fatty liver and all that. So a conglomeration of all this is what they call metabolic syndrome. So what it's saying is that the only people that are healthy in the US, adults, so is 1 in 8. So 88% of them also are not. And then look at the next one I highlighted. Say 1 in 3 US adults are pre-diabetic. When you're diabetic, your fasting blood sugar consistently over time has been like 126 upwards. Then pre is between 90 and that 106. So when you're pre, you're already at the introductory level. It's called insulin resistance. We'll get to that today. So 1 in 3 of them are pre-diabetic. But over 90% of those that are pre-diabetic, they don't have an idea that they are pre-diabetic. So you see, if they were feeling it, if they were feeling certain symptoms, they would have gone to the hospital to check. But they are not feeling, so they assume they are fine. And that is why you have all those consequences. About 4 in 10 Americans with hypertension don't even know they have it. You see, what we're talking about, your body is not speaking. You are feeling healthy, you are feeling well, but that is deception. So that is the problem there. This is CDC, Center for Disease Control. The places I got these statistics I'm quoting for you now. And then NIH, National Institute of Health. A National Institute of Health is equivalent to like our Federal Ministry of Health. So look at the heading of this particular journal. Look at it, it says the hidden epidemic of prediabetes. 88 million Americans are pre-diabetic, but most of them are not even aware of it. I like bringing it down, bringing to our country, because we all live in Nigeria, we don't live in America. And as a matter of fact, it's not part of my presentation today. Maybe in the future, I'm going to be showing you some statistics that it's going to marvel you, going to astound you what is happening in America that many of us are running into. So metabolic health, like I mentioned before, look at Nigeria overall. So the prevalence means 30, 35, 36, let's say 1 in 3 people are metabolically unhealthy. Okay, so but in terms of recent diagnosis, as many of them, that will show many of them that have not been aware. It didn't state that. If you look at the next one, hypertension, about 1 in 3 as well, 36%. And then it says 71% are unaware. So it means 7 out of 10 of the people that have high blood pressure, they don't even know they have it. And then diabetes is 3%. I'm actually questioning it was why I got this. I wanted to be modest. I have seen some prevalence 5% in Nigeria, and 84% are newly diagnosed. It means these people just knew about it. Look at pre-diabetic. These are the sources, these are the journals I got all this information. All right. And there is something that is common to these ones we've mentioned now. They can be measured, right? They're easily measured. And there's a consensus among health professionals with respect to the fact that there's no confusion with the reference range. So if you say that normal blood sugar is between 60 and 90 milligram per deciliter, and then between 90 and 126 is pre-diabetic, and then above 126, you're diabetic. So that one is very clear. And then these are vital signs. It means you go to the hospital, most of the time you can easily check them. Right. You remember what we are looking at now? I mentioned that there are 3 points that under the title, many people think they are healthy, but they are not. Number 1, I talked about feeling deception. This second one is when the lab tells lie. There's a reason I titled it this way. If you look at this, there are some lab ranges that are the reference range that is not correct based on research. I'm not the one saying that. And I know a couple of lab scientists might be on this call, so they will understand what I'm saying. These things, do I say imposed on us? Yeah, there's no reference range that is developed in Nigeria. It's in America, Britain, they develop it, they bring it down to us. But I'm mentioning these two for some reasons: vitamin D and liver function test. Let me tell you why I mentioned that they are wrong. Endocrine Society, I'll just mention Endocrine Society. Apart from Endocrine Society, there's Institute of Medicine. These people have put out different guidelines, okay? As a matter of fact, the chairman of this Endocrine Society is one Professor Holix. He has done the most research on vitamin D. He was the one that discovered 25-hydroxy vitamin D as the circulating vitamin D. He was the one that discovered 125-dihydroxy vitamin D as the active form that is made in the kidneys. This is what they put forth. It says 40 to 60 nanogram per million. Okay, that is the most range that is used in Nigeria. But do you know most Nigeria? I didn't want to show people's because of privacy. Even if I remove the names, I needed to take permission, but I don't like doing that. Look at the range in Nigeria, 10 to 65. That is what most lab. That's why I mentioned that some scientists are here. So imagine you're 10, you're 15. Of course, I've seen a lot. As a matter of fact, 70% of clients I sent to do vitamin D tests. I started it recently that everybody now you do vitamin D test. 70% of them come back with deficiency, say between 20 and below. Then another 25% of them insufficiency, let's say 20 to 30. And I'm using that Institute of Medicine. But if you use Endocrine Society, it's 40 to 60. Sorry, there's a mistake. It's actually 40 to 60, yeah? So you see that is the problem or the challenge that we will have. So if you're 10, you'll have a problem. And imagine somebody is 10, your immune function will become out of whack. vitamin C is related to a lot of things, immunity, to cancer, to cardiovascular health in your heart and your blood vessels. Let's read this another study. Like I said, I will be showing that. If you look at the third line, Endocrine Society, the National and International Osteoporosis Foundation, and the American Geriatric Society define vitamin D deficiency at the level of 25 hydroxy vitamin D, okay? That's the one you find in the blood, of less than 30 nanogram per ml. So this is what they call deficiency. I'm even saying 20 to 30 insufficiency, but this is the saying deficiency. Is it the Endocrine Society defines a recommended range of, look at it, to maintain this level, the Endocrine Society recommends an intake of 400 to 1,000 IU for infants that are less than 1 year. Adults about 2,005 or so. Meanwhile, in our supplements, we have 400 IU. As an adult, we're taking 400 IU. I've seen studies that were done, over 60% of pregnant women are deficient in vitamin D. And then they give birth to their children, test the children, over 70% of them are deficient in vitamin D. As a matter of fact, they came up with data for these pregnant women to have sufficient amount of vitamin D to pass to their children. They will have to take about 6,000 IU in pregnancy, but women are taking 400. And I can tell you, most of the people on this call, 80–90% of all of us on this call were vitamin D deficient. And the implications are there. So that's the lab lying. The lab will tell you, oh, you're okay at 10. But science didn't say at 10 you're okay. At 10, you're deficient. Then I'll mention another one, liver function test. This is basically, let me look at liver fat now in the context of fatty liver. In the 50s, the range was below 40. As a matter of fact, I've seen studies that the range were between 20 and 25, as in 5 to 20, another one 5 to 25, they say if you're black. Sometimes, they will say if you're black, So 5 to 20, 5 to 25. But you know what has happened? From the 1980s, fatty liver started increasing because before 1980, let me just define this. Before 1980, and you see somebody with fatty liver, the person is an alcoholic. It's alcohol. But then, after 1980, a lot of people in the population, fatty liver, fatty liver, fatty liver. And then suddenly children, fatty liver. But children don't drink alcohol. So there must be something they are taking that is causing that fatty liver. We'll get there. So you see that it was less than this. Look at the conventional rate, the middle box, 5 to 40, 7 to 56. So you are 30, you're 35, you're 40. So when people come and then I look at those results and I see 30, 35, I just explain it to you. I'll tell you, sorry, this is where you're headed. And look at a modern reevaluation. They looked at a healthy population, and this is the range, 26, 5 to 26 female, but 32 for male. So this is supposed to be ideal. But most of our labs, this is what they are showing. And that is a big problem. So that is how the lab is lying to us about these things. And when you don't do that proper diagnosis, you might have fatty liver. If you have fatty liver, your chances of diabetes increases by 400%. So when people come in and they want to reverse diabetes, meaning diabetes, cure completely, I will do a holistic, I'll ask them for a holistic test. And this is part of it. Why? I want to look at the fatty liver. Because if you have fatty liver, no matter what you do, you address inflammation, you address every other thing, the person will not still be fine. All right, so these are the journal, the way I'm getting some of these things I'm sharing with you. And then we have talked about one, when your body does not speak. Okay, why people think they are healthy when they are not. The second is when the labs lie. The third one is when the system lies. Not just the lab now, it's the system that is lying. That's quite interesting. And I'm going to just give one example. That is insulin. You go to labs, we don't measure insulin. It's in America now, they are trying to introduce insulin, HOMA, some of them call HOMA test, introduce, that's insulin test where you measure insulin. And because we don't measure it, it becomes problematic. There's what they call insulin resistance. I'll just break it down in 1 minute. When you eat whatever food, carbohydrate especially, and then it's broken down into glucose. The glucose is absorbed into the blood. And then for it to enter the cells, it needs insulin. Insulin is like the key. Insulin doesn't open its door because it's just like a room has two doors. Somebody has to knock for somebody inside to open another second door. That is the way it works. So insulin kind of knocks, and then there's a biochemical change that happens, and then the door for glucose is now opened, and glucose enters. But a situation happens when your body is now resistant to insulin. Your body is not taking in insulin. That is insulin resistance. And it's a big problem because many people that have it and they don't know. And it's one of the causes of chronic diseases. I usually use this as an explanation. If you disconnect all the blood vessels in your body and you join them end to end, it will cover about 23,000 miles. That's enough to circle around the earth twice. That's enough to go from here to London and back 5 times. That is all. Because some of them are as small as the hair strand, while some of them are larger as well. That 60,000 miles of blood vessel has 5 liters of blood that flows in there. 5 liters of blood. So just use your imagination. Why I bring this kind of imagination is I don't want you to forget it. But do you know that 5 liters of blood can only suspend 1 teaspoon of sugar? So if you have more than 1 teaspoon, you might run into a problem. If you have 5, 6 consistently, you can even fall and die. So that is how it is. So if in the morning, most of us will eat 4 slices of bread, not meal, I don't do that again. 4 slices of bread with jam and your favorite beverage. At the end of the day, that is going to release about 20 teaspoons of sugar into your bloodstream. And you can only suspend 1. What do you think will happen? There's an organ that releases insulin, pancreas. Bam, just enters into work, releases insulin. Then they mobilize the glucose into the cell. Right. But imagine if you do it consistently. It's just like someone who for farmers, they understand, they use cutlass to cut, you sharpen it. For women that also cook, you see, you all have to sharpen your knife. If not, you cut and cut and cut. What will happen? It becomes blunt. So that is what happens. When you do it consistently, it becomes problematic. And I will explain that to you. This is just showing us how insulin gets to the receptor. But this is exactly what happens. Insulin resistance. Let me assume this is like a hypothetical value I'm creating. Glucose is 5 milligram per deciliter. Insulin is 5 units. So you say for every 5 milligram deciliter of glucose, you need 5 units of insulin. So we assume that is the baseline. We assume that is for a normal person. Okay? Do you know what happens? When you keep eating that way, you discover that after a couple of months, you can see this is time in years. After a couple of months, you discover that you don't need just 5 IU of insulin to move that 5 units of glucose. You need 10. It means if you release 5, your body release 5, it's not able to move it. So it will now release 10 for you to be able to move it. A time will come again, maybe after 1 year or 2 years. You don't need 10, you need 15. Meanwhile, remember, a normal person needs 5. Now you are needing increasing levels of insulin to be able to move the same unit of glucose into the cell. That is what they call insulin resistance. It's like when it's not sharpened, you have to use force or you apply more energy. But let me tell you something that is funny at this time. If you go to hospital, because they don't check it, they don't know something is wrong with you. All they see is, at this time, your blood sugar is still normal. Still normal. Nothing is wrong yet. It will keep rising, rising, rising. And they will check. They'll say, you're okay. Go. Your blood sugar is normal. Go. Meanwhile, you are sick. Something is wrong. Insulin resistance is there. And it builds up, or maybe until the pancreas is not able to release the amount. This thing can get up to 100. Let's say a normal person will need 5. You are releasing 100. The pancreas will be tired now. So much pressure on it. So what happens? Gets tired, call it pancreatic burnout. And when that happens, you are not able, the pancreas is not able to produce enough insulin again because for your level. And then the blood sugar will not start rising. That's when blood sugar starts rising. So for somebody who has diabetes, and you just check, diabetes, you have diabetes. That diabetes has been there for 20 years, 15 years, 10 years. So insulin resistance has been there. It was until they did that, oh, blood sugar is now high. So you can see why we are not able, that's the conventional medicine is not able to cure or treat diabetes. So when some of us will tell them that it's curable, type 2 diabetes. Type 1 is the one you always find in children. It's an autoimmune. Your immune system is destroying your body. But this is type 2. And I've seen a lot of people, there might be 1 or 2 even on this call, that diabetes disappeared. They are using 10 units of insulin, 20, 30, 50, they are there. Why? Because of this understanding. If you have that understanding too. So you discover that somebody had a heart attack today. The heart attack didn't start today. It started 20 years ago, 15 years ago. So this is just the way, this is like explaining what I just demonstrated. And do you know this insulin resistance is tied to many diseases? You can see, these are just few of them. Okay? And these are just few of them. You see women, PCOS, I've handled a couple of them. It's insulin resistance of the ovary. Their blood sugar will be normal, but there's insulin resistance in the ovary. That is what is causing that. That's for those women. Obesity, you see there's some heart disease, cancer, high blood pressure. Most high blood pressures that start early are due to insulin resistance, most of them. If you reverse insulin resistance, you reverse the high blood pressure. I know they are telling you salt, but that is not entirely true. I'll come to that in the future. I'll begin to break some things down so that you understand some of the lies you have been told. That is why people are not getting well. All right. So how do you measure insulin resistance? Since it cannot be measured now, there's no direct lab test. So a couple of studies have come up on our research, and I've seen that when you look at the lipid panel, they say go and do cholesterol tests. Some people will just go and do total cholesterol. That's nonsense. Total cholesterol is meaningless. But you do the full lipid panel. That full lipid panel will show you total, will show you LDL, will show you HDL, to show you triglyceride. So that's where you can compute that. If you take the ratio of triglyceride to HDL, it will give you what insulin resistance is. Anything over 1.5. Some studies will say 2, but I use 1.5. So these are some of the studies where you can see some of these things I am saying now. So they are approved, they are peer-reviewed quality journal. And I want to paint a scenario for you and show you what is going on. This is like a lipid panel. This is the way it is. If you go do cholesterol test, okay? You do total cholesterol, triglyceride, HDL, LDL. So you can see total cholesterol for this first person is 250 milligram per DL. And then for the second person is 190, okay? Look at all these values. So most times what they look at is the total cholesterol. And I mean conventional, I don't mean me. Conventional medicine, this is what we look at, total cholesterol, and look at LDL. So LDL, it should be less than 150, it's not 170. The total should be less than 200, 200 or less. So some will tell you the less the better. That is terrible advice. So when you look at this person, it's 250, right? It's above. LDL also is above. Wow. It's a candidate for cholesterol reducing medicine. And this is what you'll see. I actually extrapolated this, not exactly, I just, got something close to what I usually get to show you. And then look at this one. Is it not 170? You say the person is very fine, is it not? It's less. Look at this one, less also. But do you know, if you compare these two people, this one now that you think is normal has heavy insulin resistance. Based on that calculation I gave you, I said, well, anything above 1.5 is a problem. Look at this one, 1.05. Look at this one, 3.5. See, this one is heavily insulin resistant. And this person can even die. You know, heart attack, anything. When insulin resistance is not detected, what are the consequences? It builds up over years. Like I said, you will think you are healthy, but you are not. And then you might still fall sick. You won't be detected. Or yet it won't be detected. You fall sick, you go to hospital, you will not be detected. There's someone who came to me last year. She might be on this call. And then she was having some heart symptoms. And then her legs were swollen, edema, it's called edema. So it means the heart is already malfunctioning, not able to pump enough blood to circulate. So the breathing, you know, when you have those heart issues, the breathing problem, you know, there's palpitation, there's arrhythmia. And then she went to do ECG. It mentioned, you know, of course, for some of you that have done it, it tell you primary systolic dysfunction, all those dysfunctions. And her own identified a couple of them. She went to a couple of hospitals and they look at her cholesterol. I think it's around 230. That's total cholesterol. And what they did, they gave her cholesterol medicine. Definitely you get worse. So when she called me around, said that February, March, you know, came to see me. I thought I threw that in away. And what did I do? Just give her a lifestyle change and some nutritional supplement, about 4 of them. And in 4 or 5 months, the symptoms disappeared. If she continued taking that cholesterol medicine, it should have been a big problem. The heart is going to be failing and failing and failing and failing. So those are the issues we have. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just saying the truth. And like I said, we're going to get to solutions, some of this, and that's why I'm laying some of this things bare. And then I want to also buttress this point I mentioned. You know, you have been told that high cholesterol causes heart disease, or you know, causes all that. If you don't do your own research, you believe all those things, but it's not true. In the near future, I'm going to come in details. I'll take you maybe 200 years. I'll show you all the people that lied, how they manipulated data. Some of them will, you know, do research. They won't publish the data because it's against their hypothesis. Some of them will go and bribe. There's a big Harvard bribe, you know, and all that around this cholesterol. But look at what happened now. Between 2000 and 2006, 551 hospitals in America, they looked at about 240 to 50,000 people that were admitted for heart attack. For all of them, the ones that the cholesterol, that's the panel, like I showed before, was taken, were 136,000. Okay? Look at this. 75% of them were within the normal range. So if cholesterol caused it, 75%, what happened? 50% were even lower, optimal, it's less than 100. And let me just tell you point blank. If you have a cholesterol level, LDL, and the tell you is less than 100, you are exposing yourself to certain diseases and problems. Okay? So anything less than 100 is a big problem. These are some of the references. So, you know, we're talking about aging. So now let's go to the nitty-gritty of this. Inside the clock, how cells age, how. We're going to look at how they age. We'll look at underlying mechanisms, what happens, and we'll look at what causes it, some of the things you know, but they're going to come in a different way. And then let me see how far we can go. Okay? But before then, I want to look at implications of premature aging. Number one is, like children now that have aged prematurely now, they age so fast, they mature so fast. Premature puberty. Puberty before was around 12, 13, 14, is it not? Now, 8 years, 9 years, they already attained puberty. And these are because of some of the things they are consuming, phytoestrogens from microplastics and all that. We'll get into that. And then premature menopause. A lot of people attain this. Someone called me from the UK. Either yesterday or the day before yesterday. In her 40s, early 40s. And then for 6 years, she hasn't menstruated. She's trying to conceive. Well, why will you conceive now when you have not menstruated? And then someone referred her to me because I've done something like that. somebody that is already in menopause and then menstruation has stopped, give some lifestyle change and some supplements, and then menses started. So that is what you see. And then another thing is that chronic diseases appear earlier. Very type 2 diabetes. You know, a lot of children, 10, 11, 12, have type 2 diabetes, not even type 1. That is what is common then. Type 2, quite a lot. And then fatty liver. In America, 25% of children have fatty liver. That's a big deal. Early death. Of course, if you mature early, you die early. The infertility rates are declining. That is what you see. Look at type 2 diabetes. This is children. In 1980, it was virtually absent in US. Look at US again, 2017 to 18. You can see 17.9 per 100,000. Do you know that between 2001 or so to 2016, I'm not too sure, I didn't bring that data here, it doubled. The rate increased by 100%, type 2 diabetes in children. These are our children. So you can see, let me leave UK, let me say Nigeria. You can see how it is. It was virtually absent in 1980s. This is 0.25%. Is it not growing? It's growing. Let's look at non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. First recognized were in the 1980s in US. Recent now, 5 to 10% of the general population. These are children, 5 to 10%. And then 26% in obese children. These obese children, 26% of them have fatty liver in the US. Is it not alarming? Let me come to Nigeria. In the 1980s, it's not recognized. You don't see it. Recent, this 26% is not Nigerian data, let me tell you. I didn't see any Nigerian data that captured this. What I saw was Kenya, Nairobi. And these are children that are obese, they are overweight. And these children, if you leave them, fatty liver, and it keeps growing like that, sorry to say, they won't live long. As a matter of fact, there's a study that came up in America that said that children now, that we have now, will not live as long as their parents. I'll get to all that. And then what exactly is driving this fatty liver disease in children? It's one thing, sugar. One, because children don't drink alcohol. Sugar is made up of two things, glucose and fructose. Glucose is used by every cell on earth. Plants or animals will use glucose. Every cell in our body uses glucose. But there's no cell in our body that uses fructose. I know it's shocking to some of you. It has to be converted to something else before it's able. It has to, go through some conversion before we're able to use it. And do you know what happens? When we consume it, if we look at the structure of fructose and compare with the structure of alcohol, you discover that both of them have similar structure. Do you know what happens? The body handles fructose like alcohol. So that's why you see most of these children taking a lot of soda, taking this, taking that. And at the end of the day, what happens? It's fatty liver disease. So I want to go briefly into some of these biological processes that drive aging. And you know the truth? The same biological process that drives aging is what drives chronic diseases. You know chronic diseases now. Or the high blood pressure, or the diabetes, or the cancer, or the arthritis, or the fatty, whatever. So it's the same process that drives both. So you see that it's an important subject. We're not looking at it, okay, I want to look young. Yeah, it's good to look young, but how do we prevent chronic diseases? These are some of these jargons. I don't want to dwell on these jargons. I want to explain them. So because of our time. Number one is epigenetics. Well, you know the gene. This is like how the gene is. The gene is like a keyboard. It's a blueprint. The gene does not express itself. You know, most of the time we think, oh, I have the gene for diabetes. There's nothing like that. It's only a few things. Let's say sickle cell, for example. That's the one that your gene is your destiny. But something like diabetes, it's not cancer, arthritis, all those things, they are not gene. We have actually magnified the role of gene out of proportion. How does it work? It's like a blueprint. And then it's what you play on the keyboard. I play keyboard, that's why I'm using it to give this sample. It's what you play on the keyboard. That's the sound you're going to hear. So the environment is like what you're playing. And the sound is the expression of that gene. If you play anything, like in music, they call it cacophony, play any sound, it's going to be bad. But look at one thing, dust on keyboard. If you let dust settle, what happens? It blocks it. That is the same thing that happens here. Each of these represents certain traits that, for health, for longevity and all that. So those traits are now blocked by a methyl group. We know this chemistry and all that, but just look at it as a chemical tag. It will now go and block that place. When it blocks it, what happens? That part is not able to express. Imagine it's for health. It will not express. So what happens? It means you're dying. That is one. And then the mitochondria. Mitochondria is the energy, most of us that this sign, energy factory of the cell. That is mitochondria. That's where energy is generated. It's like power plants. If you lose power plants in Lagos, now what will happen? All of us will not have light. So that is basically what the role of mitochondria. And sometimes we think energy is just for us to work, for us to, no. Do you know that sleep is an energy-intensive process? You need energy to sleep. You need energy to digest food. If you don't have energy, you cannot heal, you cannot repair. Point blank. It's as simple as that. So those are the things that go wrong. Another one is fire within. It's called inflammation. I know anytime I read inflammation, I remember, I don't know who sang that song, that is fire in our country. Give me plenty water, let me quench the fire. This is fire, not in our country, in our bodies. And what happens? Inflammation is not bad. Let's say that. Let's say you have a mosquito bite or an ant bite. What happens? It's inflamed. It gets itchy, you start scratching, and then it swells up, reddish, and then hot and all that. Those are signs of inflammation. So those are the things that happen in your own system. So it's supposed to resolve. Inflammation will come in to resolve. It's a healing. You discover that this one does not resolve. To now keep going. So like fire that is burning inside you. That is one of the signs also. Both aging and chronic disease development and all that. Then sugar. This is actually glycation. When you eat excess sugar, some of the sugar molecules will bind to protein. When it binds to protein, that protein will become dysfunctional. It won't be able to carry out what it will do. At the time they will accumulate, they call them AGEs. Advanced glycation end product. That's what it means. AGEs. Advanced glycation end product. And I give you an example. People that are diabetic, they go to test and they will ask you to do HbA1c. What you're looking at is the sugar that has bound to the hemoglobin that carries oxygen within 3 months. That is what it's going to give you. And then also there's skin aging. People that most women that are looking for anti-aging and you're eating a lot of sugar. That sugar is going to bind to a lot of collagen. Collagen is the most abundant protein in the human body. And then when you do that, it's a problem. For you to know it happens, look at this is the rib cartilage of a 4-month-old baby. Nice and white. This is the rib cartilage of an 88-year-old man. Nice and brown. So you can see everybody's brown. But the question is, at what rate are you brown? When you do diabetic check, they don't check fructose, they only check glucose. But do you know that fructose is more dangerous, like I showed you before? When you take a lot of it, maybe most of this fast food, not fast, maybe you go to the supermarket, you see most of those things, or the beverages or the whatever, cereal. They have glucose syrup, corn syrup. That corn syrup has a lot of fructose. And when you eat it, do you know you're going to brown 7 times faster? And then not only browning, you're going to release what they call free radicals. These are free radicals that damage your cell. We have protection. We have antioxidants like vitamin C, glutathione, superoxide dismutase. These are all antioxidants. But you discover that when you release a lot of these free radicals, they will overwhelm your body. That is the next one. And that situation is called oxidative stress. So oxidative stress is when free oxidants from the atmosphere, from the sun, a lot of them comes from the air we breathe and all that. Another thing is senescent cells. What happens is there are some cells, they will not get old. They have aged, they are tired, they are retired. They are doing nothing. But they are not inert, they are not harmless. what they do is they be releasing harmful substances. Those substances they are releasing that are harmful will trigger inflammatory response. Your immune system will react to it. And so the immune system will not be reacting constantly. This is another thing. I call it decaying, but endothelial dysfunction. You look at the blood vessel, blood flow there, the blood vessel is supposed to, there are some things that God has put in there that is supposed to keep it healthy all the time. So I don't have time to mention most of those things. And then the cell that line it is called the endothelium. That's the endothelial cells. Those cells are the ones that release a gas called nitric oxide. That's the gas that relaxes the blood vessel so that you won't have high blood pressure or you won't have erectile dysfunction, even diabetes and all that. So you discover that what happens, this blood vessel will start decaying. As a matter of fact, a study is there, I didn't put it here, that it starts in your 20s. So it starts in your 20s. In your 50s, you have lost 50% of those cells that line the blood vessel. So at 40, that's why you see most high blood pressure, diabetes develop from that time. Meanwhile, this thing has started 20 years ago. You didn't know. So I think I will just stop at this next one. How do you know your real age? How is it measured? There's a Hoover clock at the tags on the gene that prevents it from being read. So there are hundreds of thousands of sites on the gene. So they developed an algorithm where you can measure something against. So that's where you can determine how old you are. There are some of the tests are not in Nigeria yet, but by God's grace, we are planning to see if we can bring them. It gives you an estimate. It might not be exact. That's why it's a powerful, but not magic. But it can give you an estimate of even when you're going to die. That is what it is. As simple as that. People in mortality space in America, that's how accurate they are. The kind of data they have, we don't have it. We have telomere. This is like the chromosome is like the shoelace, and you have those plastic caps at the end of the shoelace. That's the telomere. As the cell is dividing and all that, it's shortening. When it gets that short, you will die. So that's how to measure how much you are shortened. That's to show you how the age of your cells. And also there are some things you collect your blood and measure some metabolites. And then also there's what they call VO2 max. That is the amount of oxygen that your cell can utilize when you're doing exercise. So if your VO2 max is low, it shows that you have aged significantly. That is also with the grip strength. Just a quick recap. This one is showing us, this is where we're going to the creme de la creme of the conversation. How we all travel in that direction. And how some people are accelerating their own aging. And how you can decelerate the aging. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.